Joining us now is Democratic Congressman James Walkinshaw of Virginia. He's a member of both the Oversight and Homeland Security Committees.
Welcome back, Congressman. So I want to go exactly where Representative Garcia left off because I'm amused. I'm amused by the administration and the Justice Department playing this, oh, well, she's no longer, required or eligible or liable, whatever word they want to come up with, to come and sit down in front of your little committee and have a conversation. Here's where I stand. Be curious what you think. Really don't care. Because send the nice letters, say what you want to say right now, because when you get the power next year, when you have the majority, send the marshals, go pick her behind up and bring her in. I mean, yeah, hold her in contempt and all that's a process, but there's a lot of authority behind the gavel that you will have next year versus right now. So if I'm the Dems, I'm not going to sweat the noise from Trump on this right now. Do the pro forma official stuff that you got to do to hold the place marker on we want Pam Bondi. But as Representative Garcia says, I don't care if she's an attorney general or a private citizen. You got stuff we want to know.
Yeah, look, Todd Blanche is a lawyer himself. He was Donald Trump's personal lawyer. He knows that the statement the Department of Justice put out is total BS. The fact that she was fired doesn't absolve her of the legal responsibility to comply with the subpoena. And I agree with what you said about next year, perhaps, but I'm not giving up on this year. She's still under a legal obligation to appear on April 14th. And we're going to hold her and Chairman Comer to account to make sure that that happens. And we have tools today in this Congress that we could pursue, just as the Republicans attempted to pursue with respect to the Clintons. Yeah. So we're not going to take any of that off the table. Our expectation is she comes in and answers questions. I think it's reasonable for us and the American people to ask, why doesn't she want to come in and answer questions? What does she have to hide?
Do you have enough Republican support yet, or at least that you know of, to actually be successful in holding her in contempt of Congress?
I think it's very plausible that we will. We had a bipartisan vote on the committee to issue the subpoena. Today, Congressman Khanna and Congresswoman Mace sent a letter to Chairman Comer saying they both expect that the subpoena be complied with and that he, Chairman Comer, hold her to account with respect to the subpoena. I think if we got a vote on the floor of the House for contempt, it'd be a very difficult vote for a number of Republicans, especially given the fact that Donald Trump already fired Pam Bondi.
Right.
First of all, I'm in the Michael Steele camp here. I'm like, just holler in when y'all get the gavel. But I want to drill down on the Department of Justice essentially saying we don't have to comply, right? Like what they are doing is they are redefining or attempting to redefine what oversight actually looks like. They are trying to set the agenda here, and they are trying to set the rules. And I think that's dangerous, Congressman, because if they can get away with it on this, they will continue to get away with it on all of these other things, not just the Department of Justice, but the Department of Homeland Security, right? The DOJ, the DHS, ICE, we can go down the line with all the acronyms. Oversight, the people who need oversight don't get to decide what oversight looks like. Right. The Congress is who gets to decide what oversight looks like. So take me to January 2027. Let's just say Democrats in the House do have the gavel. What are y'all doing first?
Well, with respect to Pam Bondi, assuming she hasn't appeared by then, I certainly hope she will, we would need to reissue the subpoena. And then if she fails to comply with the subpoena at that point, hold her in contempt, either civil contempt, which would go through the courts, or criminal contempt, which would go through the Justice Department and be referred to them to decide whether they want to prosecute. We'd have to pursue perhaps both of those options. But I think we can do that this year with Pam Bondi if she doesn't appear on April 14th or sometime in the very near future.
Yeah, and I think that's an important consideration. And I take up your point, Congressman, about where Republicans could land on this. Jackie brought up. I thought Ro Khanna and Nancy Mace today issuing a letter, an objection letter to James Comer on this point, noting the removal of Pam Bondi as Attorney General does not diminish the committee's legitimate oversight interests in seeking her sworn testimony or the need for accountability and information about files withheld from the public by the DOJ. And that, for me, sets up very nicely what Simone just put on the table. This is sort of a counter response, a pushback against this idea that the administration wants to come in and redefine oversight.
That's right.
And so, to your point about there may be some Republicans there, that first foot forward in that framing is Nancy Mace.
Yep.
That, standing with Ro Khanna, who's not been shy about, and like yourself, where all this needs to go, and to have her stand up in a letter saying, yeah, she needs to come up and appear, is pretty powerful.
Look, Congress passed a law. It said the Epstein files need to be released to the public. Here are the limited categories of things that can be redacted. The Department of Justice, and Pam Bondi was responsible for the Department of Justice during this time, did not comply with the law. It is a legitimate oversight responsibility of the United States Congress to figure out why the law wasn't filed. Who made the decision? I want to know who made the decision to illegally redact certain documents, especially those that were embarrassing or worse for Donald Trump.
Is that someone who can be held accountable once you know who that person is?
Absolutely, yeah. And if that person is Pam Bondi, then we'll have to hold her accountable. But she knows. She was in charge.
I mean, meaning if it wasn't Pam, it was someone in the White House itself.
That's right.
In the administration.
That's right. The law is very clear. So if someone directed someone else at the Department of Justice to not follow the law, that person will be held accountable.
Imagine with Pam Bondi being a private citizen, and if Democrats take back the majority in November, that subpoena power to actually get her to provide information is going to be even more powerful. But I want to ask some procedural questions. One, some of the documents that survivors claimed were missing in the release of the files, such as transcriptions of interviews that they had conducted with the FBI about people as
witness statements.
Exactly. What have those been released yet? What's the status of negotiations with the Justice Department on getting and identifying those sorts of missing items? And then who is next on the subpoena list? We know our colleague Michael Schnell reported yesterday that Bill Gates is now set to testify before Congress about his relationship. Who else is on the list?
Well, with respect to your first question, if we listen to the survivors, they have been very clear that those witness statements that you just described, a number of them have not been released. They know those statements exist because they made them, and they haven't been released. In terms of negotiations with the Justice Department, the acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, reiterated that all the files have been released, despite the fact that we know that 2.5 to 3 million files haven't been released. So we're going to continue pushing on that. We have a number of additional depositions and transcribed interviews coming up. You mentioned Bill Gates. There will be others following that. But I think right now we really are going to focus on Pam Bondi and getting her in on the 14th. And I think that could lead to additional individuals that we might want to talk to who are still in the Department of Justice or in the Department of Justice while she was there.
Have any whistleblowers, current or former DOJ officials who are staffers who've been involved with these redactions come forward as whistleblowers?
Not to my knowledge.
You know what? The administration, I think, would love for us to stop talking about the Epstein files. The acting Attorney General has asked us to do so. But we will continue to speak about the Epstein files. Congressman James Walkinshaw, thank you very much. Some of Donald Trump's biggest MAGA supporters, you may not know this, but they are now blasting his strategy and his rhetoric on Iran. We're going to show you what they're saying when the weeknight returns.